wake up eventually.
He seems to be facing audio challenges.
Mr. Stu, how are you doing?
Great.
Eric.
Yeah. Let me fetch, because it's my laptop, for whatever reason, selected the wrong webcam. So you see an unusual view of my office.
And this is my office.
I've seen it before. This one is more widescreen, though.
Yeah.
And I hope that Stu is on a sofa and not on his bed. If you're on the sofa, that's fine.
Yeah, the question is, how long is it going to be before my cat jumps on my keyboard?
Yeah, okay. So basically, you're looking for an excuse for typing something stupid, right? Wise guy. Hello, Mohamed. Tu vas bien?
Edmund, welcome. Listen in and learn what we've been up to here. Good that you can come. And greetings, Jim.
Yeah, just testing my audio. I don't know if it does work better right now.
Yay, we hear you, Mohammed.
Yeah, sorry for that. I had to reconnect again, so I think that's it. I had a problem with my Anyway, I don't see Daniel connected yet. I see Robert, to Adam. I don't know if.
I'm going to call Adam's cell phone right now to remind him.
All right, thank you, Stu.
And may I simply suggest that it's a very short, not too much people in the audience, that everyone turns on his video on their own will, of course, right? If you want to do it, please do. And turn on the mic as well. Again, at your discretion.
Adam had misread the time of 1400 as 1400 Eastern as opposed to 1400 Zulu. He will be on momentarily.
Yeah.
I had done the same thing. Unfortunately, it came up this morning at the proper time frame. Because I was on the sheet call yesterday at the proper time.
Yeah, for Eastern time people is 10 a.m., right? So that's quite reasonable.
Correct. 10 a.m. Mid-morning.
Just stick to scheduling things in UTC, and then we can figure out from that from our local time zone.
Yeah, UTC doesn't mean Greenwich, right? Because Greenwich time zone is changing compared to UTC.
Well, yeah, but still, yeah. At least we all know how to convert our local time zone to UTC, Eric, as opposed to let's convert Eastern Seaboard time to UTC and then from there to local time. Oh, well, I feel a rant coming on, so I better shut up.
I configured all my network devices with UTC, and this drives my non-networker friend users crazy. But I'm like, look, if you're going to run a global network, it makes no sense to use local time for anything.
Yeah. And the fact that half the year I'm on UTC as my local time zone is just a bonus.
Oh,
There
gee.
he is.
Just checking, Daniel, do you have audio and video? Is your audio working?
It should.
Indeed, we hear you. Perfect, thank you.
Yes. I think that we can start right now. So Daniel, please, if you can just.
Okay. Oh, you don't see the slides, do you?
We see the title slide.
So let me check. Maybe because I'm sharing share preload slides, so I'm clicking on that,
Yes.
but it does not become. Oh, okay. So I'm showing the. Okay. So do you see them?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
see your interim cover, title slide.
Yeah. Now you see the not well.
Yay!
Okay. So we are actually watching the same thing. So welcome to this interim meeting. And it's a new slide for you all. Please note the note well.
Is this a new
Nothing
note
has
well?
changed.
This or the same one from back?
Well, it looks like it's a PNG, or so we can sure it doesn't change.
Okay.
Okay, so the agenda. Any agenda bashing, Eric?
Not for me. The drip oath and the SLAM registry is the most important stuff to me, of course. And we need to get a minute taker on the HDoc, though. I'm sorry.
So
Stu said he'd minute take.
Stu doesn't see that I'm watching him very. I'm fixing him, but we don't hear you, Stu.
We don't hear you.
How about now?
There you go.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
much better.
Yes, I am. I am in as note taker, and so far I've just recorded who is present and that you have displayed the note well.
Okay, perfect. So next slide. Well, this is what is new, but I think we discussed that before the session started. Med, do you want to add something?
Nothing specific to what is mentioned there. So congrats to the working group for publishing the RID in RFC, and looking forward to progress the other ones.
Yeah, but we're moving. Okay, so Sam, that's a new topic for today.
Yay.
And then we'll see the next step.
Yeah, for
So
this
Sam,
one we can.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to say
For yes, please. If for the previous one. So this is basically to see that we have sent the legend statement, and all what we received is a NAC from the from Phil from the STM, and we hope that they will make an action. So we set the deadline for the next July. By then, if we don't receive, I would say, any follow-up, or if we don't have any concrete actions, I am afraid that we have to make a decision for the OTANT draft and the others. But we'll discuss this one in the next slot.
so that's the next slide. Anyone has any opinion on that?
So we know that ICAO there's high confidence from Gabriel Cox that by the end of the week, the process will be up and the portal will be open at ICAO to actually make the requests for both SAM code points and session IDs. So we got that information yesterday.
And
so we should hear something back from that liaison statement.
And this would be super useful if we get any kind of official news about this. Right? You see in my email, there will not be any DRIP group meeting in San Francisco if you don't get those code points. I don't want to waste time from anybody here. Everyone knows the situation, right? So that's okay, I guess. And it's pretty good news to them, right? So when I read this, I was so happy.
I don't know how many of you have seen the emails that I have sent just within the past half hour, but on I don't know, a couple of days ago, we got a thing saying that it would be up within the week. And then yesterday, I think, we got a request for any updates to our registration request. And this morning, we saw some back and forth with the one other requestor who needs to provide some information that we had already provided. And the draft of the specific session ID information is already online, although it is online.
You just muted yourself, Stu.
I don't know why it turned itself off. Anyway, the specific session ID thing is online. I do not believe it is necessarily online with the interface that ultimately will be provided, because right now it's just a link to a Google Doc or something like that with a spreadsheet that has, a header row and two more rows, one of which is our specific session ID type, which it shows as having been granted back in January of 2022, because it was in fact baked into the F3411-22A standard. But it was not actually, in a registry, even though it was in the standards document. So that should be presumably within a matter of days in a public facing registry view of some sort. And then what I have not seen is the SAM types. And those, of course, are the things that were not baked into the standard and that we need to get assigned. But, we have their assurances that that will be online within a week as well. So that's all I've got.
Yeah. So we'll keep pushing it.
Is that from the same person acknowledging the liaison statement?
That came from Gabriel Cox, who was the chair of the F-34, the working group, not the chair of the F-38 committee. So Gabriel reached out to us to make sure that the allocation for the identifier was good. And then that was how we learned of the update, that they were quickly moving forward. So
yeah, I have not seen. Go ahead.
They wanted the contact information as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen a formal response to the liaison statement request. And frankly, I could envision the formal response to the liaison statement request potentially taking months. I think we're going to see the actual registry, which is what we want, sooner than we see a formal response on liaison.
Well, we're going to have to just push really hard onto Phil or whatnot with the liaison statement.
And is that enough if we just see the registry, or Eric? I'm just wondering, Eric, do you wait for a response, or if we see the registry, it's going to be fine?
No, I mean, the best thing would be to get a liaison statement back from ASTM, of course, because it fits all the checks and blah, blah. But as long as we have something coming from ASTM, hey, you got this, this, and this, and this, via an email or whatever thing, right? that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
And it doesn't need to be the form, the liaison statement. That would be easier. But I mean, let's be efficient, right?
Yeah, and we just need to be it public. That means that if it can be sent to the mailing list, that will be good, and not just between all of us, so that we can have a
Correct.
record about this.
Correct. We need to get a record of the allocation.
Okay. I think that will be me and Stu will push.
Because allocation is
Phil.
being done in a Word document. It's not a website
No,
like the
that's okay,
INF.
right? You don't need, whether it's a Google Doc, a Word document, a sheet of paper, an Excel sheet. IETF don't care, but it needs to be done from the party or the
Okay.
entity owning those code points.
Yep.
But Google Sheet is perfectly fine.
Okay. We will push. Me and Stu will push the buttons for the next over the next week to get an actual answer from whoever needs to be poked.
Okay.
Okay, so let's
honestly,
let's wait for that and hope.
relief and happy on this move, right? So.
So do we want to do DKI first, or do we want to do my stuff
Actually,
first?
that's the only presentation I can see.
didn't get. I worked. I was up. This is why I'm late. I was working up till 2 a.m. here. It's 10 a.m. now on my slides. I didn't actually upload my slides because I thought we were at 2 p.m. my time. Forgot it was shifted time. So if you don't mind, if I can share slides.
Yeah.
Locally.
Okay. So okay.
I can't. I have to upload them now, don't I? Or no, hang on. I can share screen. There we go. Sorry, wrong request. Yes, I would wish to share my screen. I wish to share this. You guys
at
see
least
everything
I see
here,
those.
right? All right. So so this is a lot about the time architecture, but we'll go through piece by piece. So first off, I think we've kind of discussed through this in the last 10 minutes or so. So I think we're good here.
Can you switch to full screen on your end?
I should be able to. How's that for you guys? Better?
Hey.
Better. All right. So we've just talked about this a little bit. The updates. That is the current allocation, naming schemes, and whatnot for the session ID. A lot of this will be just doubled over for the SAM code points when we actually get them in. I guess the only question I have to Eric on this is the org name is marked as IETF on that spreadsheet. Should it be more specific to say IETF-DRIP? It looked like they also stole the org address to be the place in DE, which lines up with what the website says, the ITF.
So I would assume it's more. Send the question as well on the working group mailing list so I can reply officially there.
Yeah, sure.
But it should be IETF because IETF-DRIP, hopefully in 1 year or 2 years, is disbanded, right? Because mission accomplished.
Excellent.
So there will be no value anymore.
Yeah,
excellent. So then what would the contact emails be then, and the contact names? Because
the contact lead is typically in this case isg@ietf.com. But again, send me an email. I will reply to you with all the details.
Excellent. Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we once over this before it went out. So, so I think we're good on this. So I'll talk about the recent reviews first, the ones that I have seen. So the first one that came in was the DNS-DIR review from Tim. These were his points across his thing. The delegation of the domains is a request from the IEB, so we have to have an IANA consideration section for it. Also for the RR type that we were going to have. At the time, the RR type wasn't actually in there. It was just a placeholder that said there will be an RR type defined. So he pointed us to what I would need to do. He caught a potential error on the prefix. I'm going to look into that. Section 10 was
You're
very
right.
handling.
He was wrong. He backed off when I was on a nibble.
Yeah, it was a nibble problem. Section 10 was very hand wavy. Bob pointed him to the DKI draft that had just been posted at the time. So I think that has been cleared. 4.5, he wants to move. He said it should be moved to the terminology section. I have no opposition to that. And then he pointed out that there are some terms that were not defined and should be added to the terminology section. So I'm going to parse through the document in -11 to make sure that that is done. He had a problem with figure 2 with namings in the figure. It should be acronyms, and maybe making a second version of it to mark the interfaces. And then the big one was examples of what goes into the registries as an appendix, which I've made as a high priority action item. The next review came from Bob over a list of, I think, 4 emails on the mailing list.
Adam, just one comment about the previous review, please.
Sure, go.
Yeah, I don't remember that you have replied to Tim about the various points that he raised on this. Did you consider to reply to him?
Bob replied to it. I have not. I need to reply to him. I made note of all the issues, and then I haven't actually started working on it and then replying to him. So yeah, that is on my list.
Would be really, yeah, thank you. It would be really good to make sure that the modification that you will make would be aligned with what he's expecting from his review. I have seen the reply from Bob, but it was specific to one of the points. So please, you can send him the I would say your plans for the modifications and so on. That would be really good.
Yep, I can do that.
Yes, and I'm working on how I want to request section 10 to be reworded.
Right. Yeah. So I got a review.
By the way, regarding this review from DNSDR, don't forget that Jim Reed is the secretary and the chair of the DNSDR, and Tim is basically the DNS Open DPRIVE or DNS Privacy Working Group. So consider his advice as very, very serious hint and useful hint.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
His review is very good. It was on the, I think the official status was on the right track. So I think that was really good for us. So Bob sent some through the mailing list. As Med pointed out, I did respond to at least one of the points where we started ping-ponging back and forth a bit. Me and Bob actually had a conversation a couple days after because we had to talk about something else, and we inevitably talked about this. But we had some back and forths a little bit over a Zoom call. So it didn't get captured in the mailing list. I will go back and I will respond to the email more formally for a lot of this. But a lot of his text cleanup ended up in -10, the latest version. But I need to go back and make sure that I caught all of the text cleanups. Me and Bob, the reason we talked was because the DKI document had just came out and we were trying to grapple as 2 authors what goes in what bucket. And a lot of this is just to remove ICAO delegations to a minimum, just so that the process is not as hard. We know ICAO is a big organization, has 193 members, so it is not easy for them to just stand up and say, yes, we can do something for you. There's a lot of stuff that needs to go on in the background, some of which we don't have the time for. So
Adam?
We're trying to do that. Yes, Saulo.
Yeah, I would just like to bring to everyone's attention that Saulo da Silva of ICAO has joined us. So perhaps at some point later in the agenda, we can invite him to speak.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Saulo. It's nice to have you here. So we're trying to be, and that's thanks all this for Bob, because Bob is aware of how ICAO is moving. So we're able to kind of adjust our trajectory so that we're a little bit better off. And then 2 things here that were discussed in the emails were RA allocations and manufacturer code allocations, which I'll get to later in the document. Actually, 2 days ago, I saw an email from the Opster. So they also sent a review. I noticed that there was a TSV art review as well. I haven't seen that go over the email. I'm going to go look for it after this meeting. because I didn't see it. But there were 4 major things in that. First off, section 5.3 was underspecified. 5.3 is basically us saying there needs to be a name server of some kind, but we don't give any details on how to do that. But I make the note in the document that the people that will probably be reading this document are USS vendors. They are not DNS maintainers. They don't know how to run DNS servers. So we probably need some sort of language in there to help them along, which the Opster agreed with 100%. And also he made a comment that the resolution is of the UASIDs and DNS is potentially life critical. So we have to take that in consideration. Section 6.1 was hard to parse for him. I agree. I was working on -10 before his review came in, and that is one of the major fixes is section 6.1. So it will need a re-review by him. Section 7, he I think he was saying it was incomplete. I'm not quite sure, but he was pointing out that the key management problems should be elucidated. So we need to look at that section. Section 7 is about the lookup, the differentiated access process. And then finally, section 8, he's like, ICAO domains sound like a type of TLD. It's an action of ICANN if we are doing such a thing. And then other DNS-related items should be done with the DNS SME, like DNS-DRIP, which we had already gone through. So that's good. Those are all the reviews I had. I'm going to need to look at the TVSR. I'm going to go back today, and I will respond accordingly to emails so that it's on the official list. So thank you, Med, for bringing that up. I will make that an action item for after this meeting. So I'll move on to the organisms. Go.
Yeah, before moving, so there are 2 other reviews. The first one about from the transport, but basically they said the document is okay from the transport point of view. Okay. And there's also the review from the security. I was personally disappointed because I was expecting to have more, I would say, depth review on some of the aspects that are in the document, but the reviewers basically say that the document is just defining an error type and there are no major stuff to say. I personally disagree with him because there's a lot of aspects in the document that are really require, I would say, serious reviews from the security people to make sure that we are really doing something which is, I would say, good from a security standpoint. So I was hesitating to reply to that review and to request another, I would say, security review. But finally, I didn't meet it because I appreciate that people they took their time to review the document and to share it. We may disagree with their. It's good that they say that there's no issues, but I was not happy with that. So I don't know whether we should go back and request. I would say another round of review from the security director. I don't know.
Yeah, I've worked with Watson. I worked with Watson on a couple other things, so I can maybe point to some areas where he should, because the guy's sharp, for him to put his thoughts to.
Yeah, I hadn't known that there was a security review, so I'm gonna have to go back and find that email. I saw.
You can find them directly from the data tracker. You have all the reviews that were received so far, so you don't need to go into the mailing list. Stu, we don't hear you, Stu. You are trying to speak, but we.
Yep, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we've been joined by Gabriel Cox of ASTM. So now both ICAO and ASTM are represented in the room.
So I suggest we go back to the previous discussion.
Yeah. So I can go back to here if that helps our discussion, Daniel. I'm more than happy to pause, let that happen.
So let me first let me welcome so Saulo and Gabriel Cox, and I mean we'd like to give you the floor if you have anything to say. I mean on our side, I think, but Stu, Eric, please feel free to interrupt me. So we sent a liaison statement, and basically what we're looking at is a response to the IETF mailing list. It could be that informal, that the allocation has been granted. So I think that summarizes what we're looking for to move the document forward.
All right, and you're looking for that today? Is that what you're looking for today?
No,
What?
not today.
Okay.
But as soon as possible, it would be.
Yeah.
That
So
would be great.
and I'll let Salo volunteer as much as he wants in that regard. The registrar, from what I could tell on execution, I'll say this from an outside perspective to ICAO. It appears the operation of the portal is imminent. I've been talking with an individual that's been working on deployment of it and getting it working, and from what I could tell, that it's going to be imminently up, probably within a few days, I would expect.
Okay.
He was showing me a demo of it operating and stuff like that, and so there was just little final tweaks that was made in some of the verbiage and things like that was being done over the last day or so, and I think he's seeking out some final approvals to go live. Salo, if you want to add to that, that's my impression so far.
Someone should accept Salo so you can.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go, Salo. You're up.
Yeah, no, just to confirm what Gabriel just mentioned to you guys, the system is already done. We just need to launch it. It will be launched by maximum the end of the week. So everything is going according to the schedule. So I have no issue so far. So we work together, myself, Gab, and some of my staff, and the system is to be launched by the end of the week with both capabilities. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you very much. So when you say it's going to be launched, it means the allocation is going to be granted, but what kind of response do you see for the IETF?
So the if you recall, for those who have read Annex 5, the tail end of Annex 5 has a designated expert review, and in the initial bring up, I'm going to perform the role as a designated expert that'll do the review on the inbound, and so I've already prepared ICAO that the first customer of the system is probably going to be IETF. Is the day it's launched, they're probably going to have the first things coming in, and I'm going to be prepared to do a same day review, and I expect to authorize them I already know what's coming, so I expect to authorize them as soon as they come in. So that's what I'm expecting. So we've got like the SLA that's going to be in there is going to be like a 1 month SLA is going to be like the guarantee time or something, but I know you guys have some urgency around that, and it's I don't think any of them are gonna take a month. It's just that's what the SLA is. But in terms of what I'm planning on doing, as soon as that hits, I plan on reviewing and I'm expecting to confirm your request. I believe it's going to be 4 IDs you're requesting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So I'm already expecting. Yeah, I'm already expecting what that's going to look like. And
awesome.
Okay.
I think you've done the work ahead of communicating what that's going to be and all of that. So there's not going to be anything strange that hits the registry when it comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
I say that affectionately, of course.
Okay, Jim. I mean, I don't know how to give you the mic, but I think you can take the mic yourself. No?
Yes, he can.
Yeah.
Daniel, my question was just about some practicalities here. If we're going to get into some kind of arrangement or understanding with ICAO about the operation of this ICAO registry, do we need or should we have a formal liaison officer appointed? I see Eric shaking his head.
So the two registries we're talking about right now, Jim, are ASTM has a formal agreement with ICAO to run the registries for ASTM. This has nothing to do with the IETF registries at this point.
My opinion is that it's in fact we've discussed. I think Aaron has been discussed in this capacity in your group in the past, and it'd be very similar to Aaron. I mean, if you see yourselves needing to get numbers on a regular basis or something, perhaps that would be the case. But if you see this as kind of a fire and forget, you're going to do this time, and you know what you're going to do with the range of numbers you're going to do. I don't know why I would spend a lot of time setting up liaisons when it's just going to be a transactional process, and those numbers will be assigned indefinitely to IETF once they're granted.
So if you allow me to speak with my area director head on this one, and
Sure.
Gabriel, you are perfectly right. So we don't need an official liaison people or liaison between IATF and ICAO or ASTM for this. Simply an email or web page or whatever, very informally, for just, you say, fire and forget, is completely enough for the IETF side of it.
Excellent.
And Jim, by the way, there's a good question to be asked, right? But yeah, the answer is easy.
Yeah. I mean, because if there was a different arrangement where you had to touch base with things, or you had to keep updating them with things, you could very well have a different situation.
Exactly. That's, for instance, with 3GPP or ITU, where we get long-term relationships, right? We keep a liaison person and official thing, but like this one or for other stuff, we
That's fair
do
enough,
it and
Eric.
forget about it.
Yeah, that's fair enough, Eric. I was just thinking about how this might play out on the ICAO side of things. I mean, I've seen this situation happen in another international organisation, I won't say which one, where the reaction was, who are these IETF people? They're not even members. Why are we talking to them? Who the hell do they think they are? So I'm trying to avoid that potential scenario maybe occurring. It shouldn't happen given the fact we've got a close relationship with Salvo and his colleagues. But I was just trying to think along those lines in case that might be a problem for them.
But and that's a good point too. And so ASTM has given instructions to ICAO, and in terms of how the requests are approved, and absolutely there's no requirement for like an ICAO membership or something like that for them to make an approval. If that were to happen, then we would have found ICAO to be the wrong choice for a registrar, and we would have to go find another one. But in fact, there's not an ASTM membership requirement either for that matter. There's just a designated expert review, and the designated expert has the authority to accept or reject that. I think ICAO could reject it if you didn't fill in the information you're required to fill in. There's some fields you got to fill in, and they have a kind of a form that needs to be properly filled, and if it's not filled in or something, or most things are left blank, there might be a reason for them to reject it. But outside of that, it wouldn't be following the letter that we sent to ICAO. So I don't expect that to happen in this case.
Okay. Any other?
Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
Might speak if he decides to turn his mic on. Turn your mic on, Bob.
So I think on the IETF side, we know where we are I don't see any additional questions from our side. On your ICAO or ACM side, are there anything you'd like to clarify with us?
I just wanted to probably just express that acknowledge and express that the frustration of how long this has taken is understandable, and also the reality of what these things takes are and how much time they take, and particularly on more so on the diplomatic side than it does on the technical implementation side.
Yes.
But that's kind of how these things work. So that I think that's a reality of how they work, and it's also frustrating and understandably so. But what I wanted to impress on everybody is once I've seen technical implementation begin, I've been very impressed with ICAO and those responsible to plow forward actually quite quickly in terms of implementation. So and I'm quite confident on the path that they're on regarding implementation as well. Salo and Anton and those who are putting that together, they're doing a real good job and a speedy job at that on that part of it. So.
Good.
I'm having mic problems here. Do you hear me? Ah,
Yes.
there we go. Okay. Yeah, I think Jim was going beyond this ASTM IKO to items that Adam was getting ready to talk about in a larger IKO. And I also should point out that IETF does have a place on the IKO Trust Framework panel, and that may be some of how we maybe get some of the rest of this work done, maybe. But that's all I wanted to say. And yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we want to continue?
Thank you.
Where I left off, or all right? Zoom,
Maybe.
zoom, zoom, zoom. This is where we left off. All right, so these were the working items for the registry stuff. So this was stuff that I'm currently working on and is currently going through some flux in the document, and especially in 10. So in 10, in discussions with Bob, which we will forward into the list and have more discussions on, but this is a first cut. The RA allocations, or pre-definitions, I guess is a word we could use. So the justifications, the ICAO process is long because it needs to be, and that's fine. So we want to try to predefine what we can so that IETF and other things can just catch up later and make stuff move forward. So for this reason, the RAA space has been carved up. The Apex, so you can see here, this is the breakdown of all the numbers of all the RAAs. And you'll notice we have two new ones, two areas, ISO, numeric codes, and manufacturer code authorities, along with experimental. And we make it so that the RAAs are allocated in groups of 4 to keep on nibble boundaries. This is for DNS delegation because we split the nibble in half, and that was a dumb mistake, and that's on me. I was the one that chose that, and I kick myself, and I will continue to kick myself until the end of time because I did that. So that's what this is. So the ISO numeric codes, Bob had an epiphany while working with the DKI and the IETF, the trust framework stuff, that there are ISO codes for countries, and we were going to have CAAs run RAAs. So why not use those and then map them into the RAA space? So we took the numeric codes and we came up with a conversion, which you see here on the screen, to allocate ranges of RAAs, 4 of them per each CAA. We were already using ISO. We wanted it for text abbreviations, so this just naturally is an extension upon that. And we can jumpstart the deployments. And Bob's DKI draft gets a little bit into this, of how this jumpstart can happen. And two examples are on the bottom, one for an encode and one for a decode. So you see 840 gives us 4 RAAs of the 3360 to 3363. And then if you have an RAA like 1105, by just dividing by 4, you'll get 276, and 276 is Germany's ISO code. So we've mapped all of this into the space, and it's densely packed in the area. There's more in the document as well to explain what the ISO codes are and how densely packed it is. The manufacturer code authorities. So this is because we want each manufacturer code from ANSI CTA to have the potential for an HDA associated with it, and just one. But there's 1,336,336 different combinations of a 4-character base 34 code. So we need 82 RAAs at minimum to have all those HDAs. And this is a way to take the 4-character manufacturer code, convert it into basically a HID, an RAA HDA pair, and back again. So it's just done. So there doesn't need to be a mapping service anywhere. It's just a calculation. Any questions on this, or I can keep continuing? I shall continue. All right. The final one that I mark here is experimental. So the experimental range are the last 2 allocations of the RAA range. And we mark this for DRIP, specifically the working group, so that DRIP experts run either RAAs or HDAs or a combination of them for testing. Bob has already started working on the DKI stuff in a little bit, allocating for this range. I need to slot myself into it somehow, I think, for our testing at AX. And part of this is the upper allocation, the upper 4 that we are in this range are for the DRIP working group to temporarily hand out to a business, say like Google, who wants to run an RAA and test to make sure their stuff works before they go and get an RAA value or allocation in the actual space. And so that's what this area is about. The new resource record type was added, at least a very rough cut of it. We're thinking about it being CBOR encoded. It's basically a derivation of the HIP resource record, just with new fields added, the abbreviation, the URI, the endorsement, an active flag, and the serial number. There's some questions on how the endorsement gets marked as expired. I think it's just the whole record gets marked as expired. And then I make a statement claim here that all other endorsements or X509s are insert records in the DNS. This is something that has been going through a lot of different variations over the past 2 or 3 weeks. So it was hard for me to lock something down because just in my head, it's been hard to manage. So hopefully everyone can review section 8.1.1. And next week, not next week, 2 weeks from now, we can have a more in-depth discussion on this as people kind of digest what's there.
Yeah, Adam, please, if you can just wrap up in 1 or 2 minutes to give Bob
Sure.
the opportunity to present his, because he won't be here in the next interim. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so this last section, this is my last slide actually. So section 6.1 had a rework. This was even before the Opster review. So I cleaned up a lot of the text. I made subsections for each of the different supported scenarios that we would want. I added figures. And then there is some overall debate. How does this fit in the DNS? Where is the apex? Who runs the apex? Who owns the apex? But once that's sorted, delegation should be straightforward. We have the format. So that's all I have for the updates of registries. I will hand it over to Bob if there's no immediate questions, but I'm more than happy to punt this into the next interim so that we have a more in-depth discussion.
and I'll take over. I was working with draft '09 to try to get some test stuff up, and I couldn't for a reason I'll go through here. And the next slide kind of gives where I ended up being. Next slide. We're at the political level, or are we maybe higher at the religion level, as I'll be getting to. These are old discussions. This is from Carl Malmuth's Stacks books. I don't know, Eric, if you had encounters with Carl back in the early days. Anyway, this is the real Stacks model. And this is what we're dealing with. We're looking at how we put policy on top of technology. So let's go forward. So why did I do this? I tried to implement a test environment and I couldn't because there were lots of unknowns and there were no tools. And I discovered some potential security risks. And that's due to my own not clear thinking back in the early days of we started this process. Next slide. So now we have two documents. And what I'm doing is it's currently what's missing in registries. I like to keep registries to the technical matters to reduce the work for completion and put implementational matters here in DKI, which may take time to resolve. Some of the things I have in DKI right now, Adam has put into the 10 release. So my 6 release will be deleting those sections, referencing what he did. But what I found trying to test was trying, because there were no open tools for creating debts. There were no open tools for creating endorsements and no clear understanding of what the contents of these research records. And there was nobody to do it except me. So I had to learn some Python. So if you see what's up there in GitHub, if it looks kind of snaky, please do better. Anyway, so now we have something. And Jim was kind enough to set up a testing DNS environment. He set up driptesting.org. With the question is there an Apex under driptesting.org with RA, or is it all a reverse IPv6 ARPA under driptesting.org? This exposed some serious delegation requirement and need for the assignment and delegation procedure. In the end, ICAO cannot be expected to step into this in time if we want to do this for people who want to test in the next couple of months. We have to be honest with the ICAO process. So going to the DRIP registry's authors wanted the simple reverse nibble, IP6 ARPA structure. I wanted something more grouping off of an Apex structure. And with the infrastructure stuff going, since the infrastructure stuff, it would still be under ARPA. And both have challenges finding the management entity. It doesn't matter like which way you try to cut it, it's still the management entity. Back up a little bit still, Daniel, you're just a little bit too fast for me. I'm going to go with the IP6 ARPA, but with reservations because it just flies straight in the face of problems with the IP6 delegation. Next slide.
And Bob, if you don't mind, just without any hat here, Apex has got a specific meaning in DNS. So why would you like to use APEX as opposed to something else which is more meaningful for this?
The reason why is we've been using ICAO, and I think that gets too political. We need something else there, and Stu said let's use HHIT since that's what I called the thing, and that may be what we may end up doing. It's called HHIT for the Apex. So that's I have Apex in there. Thank you, Eric. We'll start reworking our nomenclature accordingly.
Okay, so it's more like Apex is a placeholder for something else coming. Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
I mean, thank you.
Salo, love working with you. I know what you're up against, and so we got to be careful using ICAO in our documents. So the trust in key handling, everything I've been talking since 2019 has had 3 levels of endorsements, and it's flawed. It's flawed because the HDA needs to frequently sign the UA debt endorsements, and that's a major security risk. And this is why in X509 PKIs, we've always had an intermediate CA, not the root CA doing the signing, but an intermediate doing the signing. So what I've created is what I call an issuing level added to the HDA, but not the RAA level. I don't think I need that. Next slide. So as a result of this, I realized we need a clear designation endorsement types. And I came with 3 labels: an authorization endorsement, an issuing endorsement, and an operation endorsement. That's explained in the introduction section of this document what these 3 are. The authorization issuing is the new risk mitigation piece. I move the frequent signing to something called issuing. If it needs to be reissued, it doesn't kill things. If the authorization got compromised, oh, would that be painful? I also talk about how these things can actually be done, how to do the risk mitigation, and how to do the signing process. I have lived X509 signing. I've talked to people who had the auditors on site doing this. I want to try to avoid that and make it a virtual operation. So I've been looking looking at lessons learned in the past 25 years, how to do this without the pain. This does impact the broadcast grid trust chain transmissions. We've always have shown in auth 3 levels, and that changes when we actually say that there's a risk doing it that way. Next slide. And then we come down to the missing apex that you just talked about there, Eric. What entities to function as the DRIP apex? And it came out, don't look to ICAO to easily step into this role in a timely frame. And I'll give you the lessons learned that the IETF PKI has a bridge CA. The bridge CA doesn't exist yet. The FAA and Eurocontrol want to get on with the SWIM testing and moving forward. They have cross-certified. They're not waiting for a bridge to be brought up because they have business to do. Why do I think that we'd be able to be more successful than them? We need an alternative. So there are 3 alternatives which are discussed in the draft. A trust list of RAAs. I recommend this, but a little issues on how to distribute this trust list, and no apex in auth transmissions as a result once you got this list distributed. Another way is to the RAs to cross endorse, much like what FAA and Eurocontrol are doing. It has an n-squared scaling problem, but can be acceptable for initial testing. Or an RA bridge as what's in the IATF PKI, but then back to who runs the bridge. So these are discussed in the draft. Please review them, and I'm going to move forward with the trust list for now. This simplify the RA assignment process that Adam just spoke about, using the ISO 3166-1 numbers. Surprise, surprise, I went digging and found out there is an official UN numbering for each of the nation states. And we have the CTI codes that we can get to an official manufacturer RAA HTA allocation. And then there's the test RAAs. But I know there will be others because there are regional agencies involved as well. I've mentioned Eurocontrol twice. Where would Eurocontrol potentially fit into this? The apex needs to be non-political to get this done. And if ICAO is really not the issue, can we set up a very good, well-architected environment such that IAN or ICANN do this? This is why I want to take this discussion into the DKI, which can take time to resolve, and let's get registries done. Next slide. Also, there are some in the aviation that really, really want X509 certificates. They do not like my nice tight endorsements that our team has developed. So how to do this as a backup to the DKI and as light as possible. and you'll see two different models, two different profiles for X509 in the document. And notice about that the PKICS certificate request can be a vehicle for the debt registration. Those who really want to use X509 can use that and create all the debt structure as well, maybe even using Acme. That's one of the things which are discussed there. But I mentioned I have two profiles provided already in the document, and the light one is of interest to one vendor I'm speaking to. So how much of this should be moved in the DRIP registries? That gets to section 10 in DRIP registries, and I will need to sort that out. There's another item that I have in there, section 5 in the PKI, and that's where I talk about actual integration with the ICAO IETF PKI. And this could be a major move for DRIP because it will get us involved in general aviation or having our X509 pieces in the IETF PKI. The jets in IETF would be ECDSA certificates, which is not hard to do with hierarchical hits, by the way. That would leverage DET and DNS for IETF, and my conversations with FAA, I'm going to have more conversation with them. They are really interested in this as they're hitting up against issues in their certificates with DNS items. And they want to be able to use these certificates for air-to-air communications, and they have problems with the certificates they have right now for that process. But also, as I intimated, actually have our debts with EDDSA certificates in the IETF, and this is more future work. There's discussions in progress. Just kind of giving you of where my thoughts are going and why I'm looking at this DKI document may take some real time to get done, and how we work in the total framework of the total IATF, which is the trust framework, the International Aviation Trust Framework, and how we fit into that. So I am, thanks to Salo having brought me into to be able to do it. So now in conclusion, this document grew out of filling gaps in registries. And part of this document now be sliced out because now it's in registries. The question is now, is everything now addressed in both documents? Is there anything that we haven't included one way or the other? And now, as I just tried to sort out what belongs where, what gets moved to registries, what gets moved to DKI. Get registries moving to last call because it will not be burned with issues which we can't answer right now. And let DKI take on the hits for that because it will take more work to get that done. So this is like a splitting of the various parts between what can be technically be done quickly with registries, and then what is going to be in like how do we actually build and deploy this, and let that go in a more rational pace. And that completes my slides, and I open for discussion.
Yeah, Adam, please take the mic.
Yeah. So I'll just say one thing on this, and this is kind of why I've been working a little bit with Tandem with Bob privately on this, because when the DKI was presented to me, my immediate major concern privately was if we're doing this, registries needs to be very technical in nature, and DKI needs to be very political and process focused in nature. And the DKI, or not the DKI, the registries should be technically broad enough that anything we want to do in DKI can be done. So that is kind of the back and forth that's kind of been happening. I think we've reached a good middle ground on that. I don't think there's anything in registries that causes DKI not to do something correctly. But then again, DKI can just update registries and go, yeah, there needs to be a new process. Here it is, right? Or new way to do something. Here it is. So I don't think there's any problems. I just wanted to point that out, that's where I'm coming from with this.
Like, how do I create debts that use ECDSA point compression? RC 9480. Do I have to put something in IANA considerations for that to happen and put that in the DKI document? That I don't have the answer to yet, but it's one of the things which I'm looking that I may have to do for the crypto agility portion.
Okay. I think we're a little bit over time, but I'm wondering if we have anything that should be discussed now as opposed to the next interim meeting. I'm
I'll be
hearing
on the list,
none.
but next interim I'll be in hot Daytona Beach at Embry-Riddle.
Med, I'm wondering, do you want just to add something before we conclude?
Further comments?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I was saying that, yeah, I don't have any further comments to add at the moment.
Okay, right. So I think we can adjourn the meeting, and thank you everyone to attend that meeting. That was a useful one.
Yes, thank
And
you,
see you next time.
Matt, for setting this up. And thanks, Gabriel and Salo, for coming. That was
Exactly.
very helpful. Our AD is very happy.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you
Bye.
in 2 weeks.
See ya.
Where's the exit key? Sorry.